This is Elizabeth here. I'll be your presenter for the day. And today I'll be taking some, helping you out with certain tips and tricks which can, help you in getting your papers published. Uh, for the last few years, one thing that, we have observed is that many of the PhD scholars struggle a lot with getting their papers published. uh, I agree, and I know that PhD is a process, is a journey which is particularly difficult. It's not an easy job to get your PhD, and in addition to that, uh, you have to struggle with, getting preparing a lot of papers and get them published, and that too journals which are high impact. So, what we had decided was that many times scholars, they waste a lot of time and get stuck because of some silly mistakes or some minute details from your end. So with this webinar, we'll certainly provide you certain pointers which can, definitely help you save your time. So if you guys have any queries, you can drop into our chat box. You can drop your messages or questions here. Our team members will be writing back to you. You can also write into our email box, which is phdhelp@5vidya.net. So you can even write into our email boxes as well. Uh, so I'll start with the presentation. Can the attendants please confirm if you can see the presentation from your screens? All right. Okay. Okay. So one thing which is pretty evident from the trend that we have seen in the last few years is that uh, the number of submissions that are made to a journal are pretty high, are very high, but the papers that eventually get published, they are very few compared to those. So authors end up feeling rejections, and this might even bring your morale down. So taking care of certain few points, it might definitely help you. uh, so here in this webinar, it will basically, at the end of this webinar, you will be uh, equipped with certain tips and tricks which can increase your chances of acceptance to a very high level. So one thing that I would like all the attendees to note is that these tips and tricks which I'm going to provide you, these are only going to work if the research that you have done is pretty much standard, it's high level, and it is making some uh, impact and contribution into your research area. So basically, what are the takeaways that you will be getting at the end by the time you finish this webinar? The first point is that will be taken care of is we'll basically discuss how journals basically review the manuscripts. What is the process that they undergo, and what are the reasons? Why are there so many rejections? And in addition to that, these reasons might give us some ideas and some pointers on how what can be done from your part, from the scholar's part, so that you can avoid these rejections. And the next point that would be discussing is one thing that sometimes scholars they face problem is where they find it really difficult to locate certain journals. That is, you're not sure how to find your papers, from where can you get your papers, or which journals you should go to. So we'll also be providing you a tutorial on how you can search for the journals which are as per your subject area, as per your interest. And a bonus at the end is we'll be giving you a list of Scopus index journals, which would be bifurcated as per different domains. And these journals, they have the review process is pretty quick. So the chances of getting published in these journals is also high. So let's move to the first part of our presentation. So firstly, in order to understand why scholars face so many rejections, firstly, you need to understand like what is the review process that is being followed by journals. Okay, so if you look at statistics, you might be quite astonished. You might be quite astonished with the number of rejections. It has been seen that, out of every 10 submissions, only one make it to the last stage and finally they get published. So it is pretty evident from the statistic that the screening process at all the journals usually employ is pretty intense. It is rigorous. So you have to take care of even the minutest details, and the work that you do, the work that you deliver, it must be seamless. So I'll just discuss like what is the process that is done, or what are the stages that you need to undergo before you finally even reach the peer review stage, and then even to get a review or certain feedback from the journals. So this image, it will show you, it will give you a brief idea, like what are the hurdles that you need to cross. So you have stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So this is like the initial screening stages, and only if you clear these 3 stages, you finally manage to reach the peer review stage. And then after your journal gets peer reviewed, finally you will get the decision wherein they'll let you know if your journal is accepted or if it is rejected. So let's go step by step and understand what you need to do, and what are the journal editors or sub editors actually looking for. What are the points they look into, so that you can from your end you can take care of those points. Okay, so before that, let's look at some, facts and numbers. You will be, surprised to know that out of, let's say, 100 journals, 100 papers that are submitted, 100 manuscripts, only 20 of them clear the initial stage. That is 80% of them face desk rejections. And out of the 20% that get moved to the next stage, 12% are again rejected at the peer review stage, and only 8% of them are actually published or accepted by the journals. And even out of the 80% that are rejected at the desk, 44, it is almost 45% of these manuscripts are rejected at stage 1, and almost 30 at stage 2, and then the remaining get rejected at stage 3. So let's go into certain detail. Let's look at what your stage 1 is actually, and what are the points that you need to be you need to take care of so that your paper gets passed to the stage 1. So basically, in the first stage, all the journals, they have your editor-in-chief. The people who are under the editors are called the sub-editors, and then they have all the sub-editors, they have their assistants or junior editors. So the junior editors are the first people who actually review your papers. So basically, they will have software. They will be taking help from certain softwares. All the journals, they have a certain template. So the first thing that they check for is they'll check whether your paper is adhering to the template or the outline that is being given by that journal. So here I have outlined what are the basic pointers that you need to take care of. The first thing that you need to keep in mind is whether your paper or your manuscript is it in line with the scope of the journal in which you're making the submission. So that is the first point where you can face a rejection. If, let's say, your paper is not in line with the scope or the aims that has been outlined by this journal, it's very easy for your paper to get rejected. Then the next checks that are done by the assistants or the junior editors is they check for your language, the language of the paper, whether your paper is as per the formatting guidelines that has been given by the journal. And then the last thing is they'll check if there is any plagiarism or any plagiarized content in your manuscript. So all of this is done, it can be done in just a matter of few seconds because everything is done on a software. So it's pretty easy if you are not considering or taking care of any of these points. It is pretty easy to get your paper rejected at the first stage itself. Let's move to the next stage. So after your paper is reviewed, if it is as per the pointers as that are checked by the junior editors, then next they are reviewed by the sub editors. So what are the points that the sub editors look for? One of them is what is your topic relevant, or is it matching the expectation of the reader of that journal, or is it as per the standard that is being followed by that journal? So that is the first thing that is checked at this stage, whether your paper, the topic of your research is relevant, if it is giving some, is it based on some novel ideas, what is the kind of contribution that your paper is making. So this is pretty important at this stage. Then something else that is checked is whether your paper, it is the flow of the paper, whether a reader, let's say a reader who is not aware about your research, who is not from your area, he is reading your paper. So even that kind of reader must be able to follow and understand that whatever is being written in your paper. So a reader must be able to actually follow and repeat whatever analysis or experiments that you have presented in your research. So your paper must be simple at the same time, plus it should be able to provide the necessary details for the readers. Then another point which you need to take care of is take care of the presentation of your data. And another thing is many scholars do this. Let's say you have already published a paper on your research in the same area, and in your literature review section, you keep on citing your own work. Now that is a red flag. So avoid doing self-citations. You can do it, but avoid doing it, repeating it. Sorry guys, there was a technical glitch. All right, let's continue with the presentation. So these are the points that you need to take care of at stage 2. So once it clears stage 1, that is first it is reviewed by the junior editors, then it reaches stage 2 of review, that is by the sub-editors. So the papers that are cleared at this stage, they'll finally reach the next stage, that is the stage 3. So if your paper has cleared stage 1 and stage 2, that means almost half of the battle is won. Then now you have another half to take care of. So some of the reasons that I have highlighted or points that you need to take care of, most of them are editorial reasons. So they are like sort of, very minute mistakes which you can, avoid if you take care of these things. All right, now let's move to the stage 3. So now stage 3 is where your paper actually makes it to the chief editor or the editor-in-chief of the journal where you're submitting your manuscript. So the chief editor will do a thorough review of your manuscript, and the reasons for your paper getting rejected at this stage, most of them are technical in nature. Like some of them I have highlighted. One is like there is some issue in your data. Let's say your sample size that you have considered for your research, it is too small, or some of the controls that you have used, it is not proper, it's missing some elements, or it is poor. That is one point. Then there is some problem with your analysis. Let's say you have used some statistical tests which are not at all, according to the research that you're doing, or it is inappropriate. That can be one reason. Or another thing is like you've altogether skipped the statistics part. You've decided not to do the statistics altogether. So that can be one thing. And another point is your methodology does not apt. Let's say you used an old methodology, which has already been, improved, and it has been updated by some more powerful methods, which in themselves are giving much robust and much better results. So in that case, the methodology that you have presented, it becomes irrelevant, and that can, lead to rejection of your manuscript. So even you have to, take care that whatever you're including in your paper or your manuscript, it is up to date, and you keep a tab of what are the developments that are ongoing in your field, so that it's up to date. Another thing is your research motive it's very weak. Your research questions are not clear, or maybe your hypothesis is not clear. There is a question mark about its validity, or let's say you have completed your research, but your data, it doesn't answer whatever your research questions or hypotheses that you have put. It doesn't answer or support those. So that is a very valid reason for rejection. And then the last pointer that you need to where your paper can fumble is if your conclusions are inaccurate. So that is like, let's say you have presented your conclusion, but whatever data you have used in your paper, they don't support the conclusion that you have made. So even that is a reason for rejection. So if your paper is getting rejected at this stage, then that means there are some major technical issues in your research, and you might have to take a good look at your research. So there might be some problems with your research itself. So now if you clear stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, that means you are like, out of the 100 submissions, you are the 20 people who managed to clear these 3 stages. Let's see what happens after this stage. So after finally, if your paper is like actually rejected in any of the first 3 stages, it is actually called as desk rejections. And after the paper is approved from this stage, it is sent to peer reviewers. So let's look at what are the different kinds of peer review process that is being followed by different journals. I have added some images here so that it can help you in understanding the concept a bit better. One of the common methods that is used is single blind. That is like the author, as an author, you do not know who reviews your paper, but the reviewer knows very well like who is the author of this paper. That is one kind. The next kind is like neither the reviewer nor the author know each other. So that is double blind. And the next is open peer review, where everything is open. As an author, who is reviewing your paper, and even the reviewer knows who the paper belongs to. All right, and usually at the peer review stage, you have at least a minimum of 2 experts, people who are expert in your particular domain of your research. So minimum of 2 experts review your paper. The paper is reviewed independently. All the reviewers, they give a detailed, let's say, comments or feedback on your paper. So once a journal receives a feedback from all the peer reviewers, it is they finally come to a decision. Like it's their call. Now they can make a call whether what is the status of your paper, what is the quality of your paper, and what needs to be done. So let's see what the final decision looks like. So after peer review is done, the editorial board makes a decision, and the decision is like the first decision that can be given is your paper is accepted without any changes. And to be frank, this happens very rarely. That means your paper is pretty flawless and it is good for publishing. So that happens very rarely, but yes, it does happen. Then the next decision that usually comes up is your paper is accepted, but with minor revisions. So here you can see, like, if your paper is accepted with minor revisions, that means your paper is in a way accepted, but then you do have to visit back and make certain small changes. So that is, in a way, your paper is accepted. Then the third decision that can be given is like your paper is accepted, but only after major revision. So there is a if clause here. That is, if whatever revisions or changes that you're doing, they are reviewed, and if it is acceptable, only then your paper will be published. Otherwise, it won't be. So that is a conditional decision. The next decision is revise and resubmit. So that is like almost they're telling you your paper is rejected. So this will require, if you get this decision, it means it requires some major revisions from your end. And even if you manage to do those revisions, you redraft your paper, or let's say you might even be required to redo your research. The paper that you submit or your manuscript, it will once again be thoroughly screened, it will be thoroughly reviewed, and if it is up to that standard, only then it will be published. And the last rejection, the last decision that's usually given is its rejection. That is, it means even if you do something on that paper, it is not up to the mark of the journal, they wouldn't like to reconsider it. So that is like 100% rejection. Next, guys, you can look at a video which will, in brief, outline the review process that is being followed by the journals. So here I have tried to, like whatever I've explained so far, this can be a brief recap of that. So the initial screening, these are the 3 people who actually review your paper. You have the assistants, sub-editors, and the editor-in-chief. So firstly, your manuscripts are reviewed by the assistants. They check for certain flaws. If your paper clears this stage, it next goes to the sub-editors. They check from their end. After reviewing the papers that are up to the mark, they are finally sent to the editor-in-chief. So like you can see, the number of papers that actually go in or that are actually submitted are pretty high, but the ones that are actually accepted by the editor-in-chief, they are very less in numbers. So after this, it gets reviewed by the peer reviewers, and finally you will have a list of articles that are ready to go and that can be published in the journal. All right. So from this now, we can come to this point. We can, understand like why journals, why you see so many rejections in journals. So one thing pretty clear is the competition. The number of, let's say, if you consider any journal, the number of articles that they publish in an issue is very limited compared to the number of submissions that are made to the same journal. So competition is one fact which is very much, hindering your process or delaying the process of getting the paper published. And the next thing is, like, if you check what are the, if you go back and review, like, what are the points that I mentioned on being the reasons for rejection. One thing is, like, many of those reasons are pretty much silly in nature. They are like, let's say, due to your negligence, you might be, your paper might get rejected. So if you take care of those minute details, if you're extra careful when you're drafting your paper or when you're submitting your paper, so you might be able to clear those initial stages. So these are some of the reasons, why your paper might get rejected. Uh, so now let's discuss, like, since now you have an idea on why your paper might get rejected, now let's see what you can do so that, or what needs to be done so that you're able to clear these stages and you can get ahead of your competitors or your peers. So now we'll move to the next stage of our presentation. That is, we'll discuss on what are the tips or what you can do. You can take away some of the pointers and get your manuscripts published. All right. So the first thing is, the first tip that I would like to give you is you can follow the editor. Now, what do you mean by following the editor? You might be thinking, how can I follow the editor? So let's say you're targeting a journal. You have a XYZ journal which you're targeting. Just take a look at what are the types of articles that are being published by that journal. So what has been taken up by that journal previously. So if you take a look at the subject areas or the topics which those papers are handling, you might get an idea. It might give you some idea on what you could be doing, what you could do in your paper. So one thing is you can do that. The next thing is, if you have chosen your target journal, just search on the target journal and look into who are the members of the editorial board, who is the editor-in-chief of your journal. Try connecting with him over LinkedIn or any other from a social media platform. Just make a connection with the editor. Search what are the publications done by him, what is his research domain, what is his expertise. And let's say if you are bold enough, I would suggest you can go ahead and take one of the editor's researches as your base. If you are confident with your research, why not? Go ahead, you can do that. So if you are taking something that is related to that to your editor's research area, this might definitely create a, let's say it might raise the editor's interest in your research, and you don't know, you never know, your paper might it might land up on your editor's desk. He might review the paper. So that is one tip that you can do. Follow the editor, check out what his research area is, what are his publications, and if you can, take one of his papers as your research and extend it. Now the next thing, or the next tip, or the point that you need to take care of, that is your cover letter. So let's look at some facts and figures here. A weak cover letter, that is, if your cover letter is not poor, or if it is not up to mark, or if it is poor, then it might actually lead to a rejection at stage 3, and it almost accounts to almost 20% of rejections at stage 3. So what can be done in that case? Stage 3 is where your paper is being reviewed by the editor-in-chief of the journal which you're targeting. So as you might know, cover letter is the first thing that the editor reads when you're making a manuscript submission. It is the first thing that the editor reads, and many times scholars think that they do not give much importance to a cover letter. or I have even come across cases where what scholars do is, let's say you make your submission to Journal One, so you write a cover letter for Journal One, and when if you face rejection from Journal One, you're again making the same submission to Journal Two, and some scholars, they are so careless that they just send the same cover letter but without even checking on the journal name, the editor's name. They forget to change those details, and uh, when an editor sees such kind of cover letters, that is, the editor might they will definitely start thinking, like, if the person is so careless, even the research can be it can also be the same way. So I think you should take very good care of drafting a good and proper cover letter. So cover letter is, it's a marketing tool basically. So you have to make pretty good use of that cover letter and sell your manuscript basically from the beginning itself. So that's the first checkpoint of your research paper, and you have to pique the interest of the editor. Like, whoever is reading the paper, they must be forced to go back and start reading your manuscript. So use it in that way and make it interesting. And also another thing that that can be checked, or what can be clarified from your cover letter is like how good you are at following instructions. Even journals have they give out instructions on what should be included in cover letters and what shouldn't be included in cover letters. So if you start fumbling at the first stage itself, it's like it'll give an idea to the editor, like whether you're able to follow their instructions, how good your cover letter is, and if your cover letter is not good, then don't know whether your paper is also good. And another tip, I would like to give you is never ever copy paste your abstract into the cover letter. That is a definite no-no. And next thing you can do is every journal will provide a guide for authors. So you can just visit the website of your target journal and follow the guide. It'll pretty much lay out everything that you have to do. So here I have outlined like what you need to include in your cover letter. So some of the basic things that you need to include is your editor's name, if you know it, the name of the journal, your title, or when you are submitting it, or what is the article type. Let's say whether it is a case study, it's a review paper, empirical paper. So what kind of manuscript you're submitting. And your cover letter must also provide a brief background of your study, what the questions are, what is the issue that you're going to handle in your paper, what is the methodology that you're going to use, and in a gist you must be able to provide like what the findings of your paper are and how you are making some contribution to the scientific community. And also there are certain statements that need to be included in your manuscript, like if multiple authors are if there are multiple authors, then you must have taken approval from all of them. So there are many points that you need to take care of at this stage. And yeah, so next you have what should not be there in a cover letter. So you don't have to use too many jargons or acronyms. Not everyone will know what you mean by that. So it's always better if you keep things clear. Next thing is, don't exaggerate your findings. If you use something like, I have made a novel contribution to the area. So the reader might get they might get this feeling that you yourself are biased about your research. Like, how did you determine that your contribution are novel? So refrain from using such terminologies in your cover letters. Another thing is, don't make your cover letters too long. See, it is a marketing tool, just like I mentioned, but then you don't want it to be too long. People might get bored and they wouldn't be particularly interested. And next thing is avoid humor, because you can go wrong in many ways if you're using it the wrong way. And here I have included example of how a poor cover letter looks, and next I have included a format of a good cover letter. Like, I have taken into consideration the points that I have mentioned and how you can incorporate those in your cover letter and draft a good one. Next reason or next tip that you should take care of is your abstract. And as you can see from the graph here, almost 17% of the rejections at the peer review stage, they are because of the abstract. So it's like almost every every 5 rejections that happen in the peer review stage, every one of them is like 1 out of 5 rejections, they are due to poor abstract. So now here I have discussed, like mentioned, what should be included in a good abstract. You must clearly specify what the aim of your study is, what is the scope you will be taking care of, what are the key problems that you will be handling or solving from your research, what is the method that you would be using, what are the data sets, and then the key findings also. Plus, you must also discuss on what the limitations of your research are. And again, here I have included a brief overview or example of a poorly written abstract. So the attendees, you can come back to this abstract and you can read it in detail. I'll just discuss what the issues are in this abstract. One of them is like, if you note the abstract, it uses phrases like we explain, we describe, we comment. So do not write your abstract in first person. That is one thing. And another thing which is noticed from this abstract is the abstract just presents the organization of your paper or how you did your research. Like, firstly I did this, first then I did that. So that is a no-no. You don't have to describe how, what your research, how your research was conducted, but you have to basically present what your results are or what you achieved at the end of the result. So that is not there in the example. Here I have included another example of a abstract that's written nicely. So here one thing is that the problem statement or the issue that you're handling, the objective of the paper, it is mentioned in the beginning itself. The abstract goes, you have to go straight to the point. What is the point that you're doing in your research? So that is there in the beginning itself. And overall, the results, they are presented in a brief but nice manner. And the next thing, next tip that you have to you can follow is regarding the formatting of your paper. The formatting checks, they are initially done at the beginning itself, that is at the stage 1, and all of this is done through a software. That is very little or no human intervention required at this stage. So it is very easier to get rejected, because of some formatting issues. And as you can see from the statistics, almost 40% of the rejections at stage 1 are due to formatting issues. So it is very important that you read and understand all the guidelines of the journal and you follow it to the dot. Okay. And here I have given an example. You guys can go and check. I have given the link for Biomed Central. What are the guidelines that they have laid out for a paper to be published in Biomed Central. So here in the screenshot that I've attached, you can see that they have separately outlined what are the guidelines that need to be followed for your manuscript text, and for in case of if you have any figures or tables, or if you want to send some additional files. So all these outlines, all these guidelines are present. So whichever journal you're targeting, be thorough, go back, visit their website, and just understand what the guidelines are and follow them. Next, thing that a scholar has to take care of is the language edit. Now, almost the statistics says that almost 55% of the desk rejections, that is before your paper reaches to the peer review stage, in 55% of the cases, your paper gets rejected due to poor language. So, what are the things that you need to take care of or tips you can follow so that your paper is of high quality? So, one thing is reviewers will always prefer that your paper has a high quality academic level of writing in your manuscripts, but that doesn't mean let's say if your topic is pretty complicated, you make your the writing part as well that complicated. No, that's not what needs to be done. uh, on the other hand, I would say clarity is the key that you have to follow while you are drafting your manuscripts. Though your topic is complex, you are making some major contributions into your research into the area, but the writing format or style that you follow, it must be simple enough so that a reader is able to follow and understand what you have done. So one thing is clarity. The next thing that you can do at this stage is have a colleague or a friend or even a peer of yours review your paper. You might never know what kind of feedback or perspective that they might be able to add on, because since you are very well aware about your research, you wouldn't be able to pinpoint certain flaws, but a third person would be able to, give an objective review and provide you with a fresh perspective. So that always helps. And if none of it works, what you can do is take help from a professional firm, from a copy editing firm. Even that can be done because language editing or being very good in academic writing is not everyone's cup of tea. Everyone knows that not everyone can be good at everything. So why not? You can take help from some professional help to get some editing of your paper. Here I have shown an example, like the first screenshot, it shows the initial text. Then you can see after round one of editing, we have pointed out certain grammatical errors. It might look okay for a native, for a reader, but then if you do a thorough editing, it might require more changes. So I've just shown how you can go about with editing your manuscript. So this is just an example. The next point that you have to take care of is complying with the ethical standards that have been set by your journal. And out of these ethical standards laid down, plagiarism is one of the major reasons for rejections of the paper. And that too, if the plagiarism level of your manuscript is above the prescribed level, your paper will be rejected right away in stage one itself. So, and I agree that many a times, many of the scholars, the plagiarism that is seen in papers are pretty much unintentional, but you must always keep a check before making submissions. Just go back and check on the plagiarism level. And the statistics here say that almost 30% of rejections in stage one, they are due to failing to comply with the ethical standards that have been set. So what are the tips or what are the things that you need to take care of so that you're able to clear this stage? One is do not make multiple submissions of the same manuscript to many journals. Now, most of you might think that it's not a problem, but it is a problem and it might lead to rejection. So if you are submitting a manuscript for one journal, do not repeat the submission or submit the same paper to another journal at the same time. Next thing is your manuscript, it might have been, it might have been published previously in partly or full, and unless you're expanding on that work, refrain from doing any such practice. That is another point. And next is refrain from the practice of salami slicing. Now, what is salami slicing? Let's say you're doing a research on a particular area. You collected some data, and I know data collection is it is a tedious process. Now, since you had to publish 2 to 3 papers, what you did is you split your data unnecessarily into multiple segments, and you just took little bit chunks from your data and based your research paper, 3 research papers on parts of those. Now, that is like that's a red flag. If you do that, if you unnecessarily divide your data or your research into small parts and try to get different papers published, that's a strict no. Another thing is, do not fabricate or manipulate your data, including even the images. That is also a strict no. So avoid doing that. And the last point that another thing is, you have to obtain consent from all the co-authors, or if you have done your research, let's say in a particular organization, you also need to submit their consent when you're submitting your manuscripts. And yeah, this I've already discussed about it. Do not plagiarize, and don't try to present others' work as your own. Give proper acknowledgements. Use quotation marks wherever required. And if the material, if you're using some copyright material, then obtain prior permissions. All right. And so that are a few things that you need to take care of so that you stay within the ethical standards. The next thing, and the next thing is the presentation of your visual elements. Now, this is something which is usually ignored by many scholars. Let's say you run you do a SCM analysis and you get some result. So, or you do a SPSS analysis and you get some results. So many scholars, what they do is they just copy paste the results. They don't, go back and cross check whether the elements that you copy paste, whether they are properly visible or not. Now that can result in rejection. So you can take care of those things. So here, as per statistics, it says that almost 15% of rejections by the junior editors, they are because many of your visual elements, they lack clarity. Now, those visual elements, they can be some images, figures, tables, graphs, it can be anything. So what are the tips that you need to do for this? Is one thing is, I've already mentioned, is follow the guidelines. So you need to stick with those. Make sure whatever images or figures that you're including, it is readable for the reader. And if you think that whatever the system generated outputs that you're getting, if the readability or clarity is low, just take some trouble and redraw it yourself instead of just copy pasting the same thing. And apart from this, you have to take care that all your tables, graphs, everything, they are numbered properly. You have titles for all of them. The file formats which the journal might have given, you are using those file formats. Even the size specified, journals will have specified what is the allowed size for images, graphs. So all these specifications are given by the journals already. So you need to take care of these small things to be able to get this done. So here I have included a sample. You can see from the image that it's illegible. So what you can do is to increase your chances of getting published, you can just redraw this. I agree that it is an additional effort from your end, but then it might save you from problems at a later stage. Next thing is how you present your results. So let's say the end results of your manuscript, they are not very appealing, or maybe you must have done a pretty good work, but you're not able to present it in a good way. So that can be a reason for rejection, because to be frank, editors are very busy. They do not have the time to uh, go into detail and look. If your results are not good, they wouldn't waste their time in going into detail and reviewing your manuscript. So how what you can do so that your results become more appealing. One thing is, do not present standalone results. So what do you mean by standalone results? One thing is, let's say you're doing a fresh research. You do not have anything to support your research. So in that case, when a reviewer is reviewing your paper, he doesn't have any base on which your results can be compared to. So that would be a tedious process for the reviewer. He will have to spend more time. So that is not something which the reviewer will like. So what you can do is you can have a benchmark, that is, take a base for your study, and you can show your results in comparison to that base, like what is the increment or what is the contribution or something additional that you have done over that base research. So if you're doing something like that, then the reviewer, he will have something to compare your research to. It will make his job easier. So that is one thing that you can do. And to add on, what you can do is, if you can take the base paper from the same journal which you're targeting, that would be an added advantage. So here I have just outlined the example here, that if, let's say, you're targeting an elsewhere journal, and in case one, you take your base paper from IEEE, and in case two, you take your base paper from the same target journal. So in case one, you have the type of results that you have, that they are standalone results, and in case two, you're doing a comparative study, and you're showing that what is the increment that your base has done, your research has done over the base research. So the second case will have higher impact, and the first one will have lower impact. And also in case two, it is easier for the reviewer to review your research, and case one, it will be very much painstaking for the reviewer. So it's not always necessary that he might be forthcoming to give so much effort into reviewing your paper. So you can always follow case two, and this might provide better chances at your paper getting reviewed and accepted. So guys, if you're having any questions, you can always drop into our chat box. You can post your questions. Our team will be answering your questions. So let's move forward with our presentation. The next thing is looking for alternative journals. So see, not everyone can do a research which is superb and flawless. People can do a research which is pretty much mediocre in nature. And let's say you have done research and you also know it, that your research is mediocre. So, and your university, it outlines that you have to get your papers published in let's say SCI index or Scopus index journal. So what do you do in that case? Your research is average, but you have to get your paper published in SCI or Scopus index journals. So what are the alternatives that you can look for? So here, what scholars usually do is, everyone wants to get their papers published in the top journals. So if you are willing to make some changes, and instead of, let's say, targeting the top 15 journals, if you take into account the top 50 journals and target the journal which is at the 50th position, even that might substantially increase your chances of getting your paper accepted or reviewed and published. Okay, so how that is? So let's discuss on few points. Like if you're targeting a journal which is at the 15th position, you might be looking at 100 other scholars or 100 other manuscript submissions. So the competition, the level of competition that you're looking at, that is very high if you are targeting a journal at 15th position. But on the other hand, if you're talking about a journal at the 50th position, the number of submissions or your competition, it might come down to a mere 15 or 20 in that case. So on one hand, when you're competing with 100 people, if the journal is at number 15, and number 50, you just have to compete with other 15 or 20 people. So in the first case, your chances of publication are like almost nil, because these are the high impact factor journals. Their screening process will be very tedious, and it will be very foolproof. So if your research is average, it might get rejected at stage 1 itself. So why not, instead of trying to get it published there, why not you go take the other way, look for the other alternative, and just try to get it submitted in a journal which is at number 15. So a number 50 journal, it is still SCI or SCOPUS index journal, but the screening process that's being followed is less, it is less tedious or less difficult. So you can always take the other way and increase your chances. And even the statistics says that if you're switching over from targeting the top 15 to the top 50th journal, your rate of acceptance, it like almost increases by over 30%. So why take a risky route? If you know that your research is average, why not go for the journal at number 50? Okay. And with this, I would like to wrap up the tips and tricks that would be given for the scholars that you have to follow. In case, guys, if you're having any questions, please feel free to write in your questions. You can drop the questions into our chat box, or even you can write to us over the email. Our email ID, it's been given in the PPT as well. It's phdhelp@5vidya.com. So let's move on to the next section here. So here I have included this section to help scholars in searching or locating for your journals. So the first one that I'll be taking care of is the SCI or SSCI index journals. So here what you can do is, I've given you the website link. You can use this link, go to the link, and here you have basically 3 categories. One is the Science Citation Index, that is SCI index journals. Then you have SSCI index journals, that is journals from the social science background, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index. So the journals which are under Arts and Humanities are in this section. So I've just attached a screenshot of how the website will look. So probably I'll go to the I have a video here, so you guys can follow this video. So I have gone to the website of Clarivate Analytics. So here you can see you have the SCI index journals, you have this SSCI indexed. So I've gone to the SCI index. Here I have clicked on the view subject category. And from here, you have an option to select the subject category, like let's say whichever your domain is, you can select your domain from here. You can click on the view journal list. So here you will have a list of all the journals which are indexed under SCI and from your specific subject domain. So you can take a look from here itself, like who the publisher is. Like here you can see it's from Springer. What is the contributing area, or what are the contents that are covered under this. So you can use this video as a reference and go about in searching your journals which are from SCI or SSCI. So if you go to the website, You can also see a section there wherein you can download the list of journals that are indexed here. Yeah, you can see the screenshot here, or if you can even follow the link that I have used here. You can just copy this link and paste it in your browser. So I have included separate links for SCI journals, SSCI journals, and journals from arts and humanities. So you can download a PDF and go back and refer to whenever you want. Okay. So next, I would like to tell you, like, if you are looking for some Scopus journals, how you can go about, looking for journals that are indexed under Scopus. So this is some basic information about Scopus. Like Scopus is Elsewhere's abstract and citation database. So it has around 38,000 plus titles which are covered under it from over 11,500 plus publishers, and it covers a variety of fields such as life sciences, social sciences, engineering, law. So and also it covers basically three types of sources. From Scopus, the website, you can actually get journals, book series, or trade journals. So all of them are part of the Scopus index journals. And basically, what you check for a journal, how you check the score or impact of the journal is from the CITE score. So the CITE score, it basically gives the average number of citations of any article of a particular journal. So any journal with a high CITE score is considered to have higher impact compared to another one with a low CITE score. So I'll show you another video to see how you can look for journals from Scopus. So just type in your the website link, that is www.scopus.com. So on this screen, you can see here you have an option that looking for free journal rankings and metrics. So without logging in itself, you can click on this link. So here you have a list of around 38,000 plus results have been returned, and you can search for journals specific to, like, let's say if you already know the title or the publisher of the journal, you can directly search it via that. Or if you want to browse, you have another option there. You can click on browse. You can select the subject area that you would like to select. So here you can see like what the CITE score of the journal is. You can select what is the type which you're looking for, whether it is a journal, book series, or trade journal. So here I am selecting a subject area. So I've selected arts and humanities. Now here, so here you have an option for display only open access journals. So those journals which are free for the reader, that is, readers can access these journals for free. Those are categorized under open access journals. So in case if you just want to check which journals under arts and humanities are open access, so you can just check box this option and click on display. So I have 437 results here. You can just filter your results based on the CITE score, and if you click on any of these journals, it will take you to the home page. It will give further details about that journal. So I've clicked on cultural anthropology. So here I can see more details, who the publisher is. I can even visit the journal's homepage from here. All right. So guys, we have also put on some polls which are available from your, you would be able to see the polls on your screen. You can also answer the polls. So at last, we are almost nearing the end of the presentation. So we have a list of Scopus index journals that are from I have covered certain different domains, and these journals they have the review process for these journals are comparatively quicker. They'll take less time. So like many of the high impact journals, the wait is very long. Even if you do submit a journal, the amount of time that it takes to review the manuscripts, and by the time you actually get certain feedbacks or inputs from the reviewers, it's very high time, and you're not able to stick with the timeline in those cases. So I have included a list of journals which are still Scopus indexed, yet the timeline that you're looking at is less compared to others. So I may not be able to go through each of them, but what I can do is we'll be sending this list of journals over to your email boxes, so you can always refer to them. Just a second. Yeah, I hope now you're able to see this is the list of journals that I have prepared. So according to the different domains, I have outlined a list of journals for whom the review process is pretty quick. So our team will be sharing this list over the emails. So you can always go back and refer this. So that's all, guys, from my end. I hope I was able to, add on some points to what you already knew. So once again, if you guys are having any questions, you can always post it. You can write to us. Our email ID is phdhelp@5vidya.com. So you can write over to us. Our team will be answering your questions, and you can always come back and view this video once again if you want to review furthermore points. So that's all from my end. Thank you and take care, and all the best with your research. Hope you are able to get your papers published. You're able to take away certain pointers and utilize those and get your papers published. So thank you so much for joining in.